Welcome back to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center, and Leadership Consultant Barbara Wichman is still my guest today. So Barbara, we were just talking about social media and leadership and words matter and how all that rolls together. Let's talk a little bit more about social media, because I don't think you can say enough about how social media can really ruin a person's career. I mean, we can look in the news and see how people have lost jobs and stuff. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, let me just say first, leadership is like a state of being, right? I mean, we talk about the attributes and the capabilities, but it's a state of being of who you are. And it's your image, it's your brand.
That's who you are.
And the question always becomes, how do you want people to see you? And you may have that moment. You know, I don't know about you, I'm probably older than you, but when I was growing up and we did something ridiculous, no one took a picture of it and no one put it on Facebook or Instagram. Nowadays, you don't have that luxury. No matter where you are, you're vulnerable, right? So it's not just about the visibility, but it's also about vulnerability.
Right.
So if you're looking for a job, if you're in a job search, or if you are in a job, you always have to be aware of what you're saying and how you're saying it, because that will become a part of your brand image, which you need to guard very carefully.
Yeah, and you can have some control over that as it relates to social media if you certain settings and things that you do, and you know, be careful with pictures and tell people not to post pictures or take pictures. I choose to remove myself when people are taking pictures. I remove myself out of the picture space, so it's important to do that. Curiosity in leadership.
Curiosity, here's what curiosity does, and this is the number one thing that I tell leaders. Curiosity is your number one skill. And the reason is because of this. It takes out judgment. If you and I are sitting here having a conversation and I'm the leader and you're the person reporting into me, if I keep asking you questions to understand what you're thinking, I have less time to judge what you're saying, and I'm listening to understand. That is the key to help people grow. It's how you help people become better people. So curiosity kind of shuts down all the negative stuff that you don't want to have going on, and allows you to become much more open to what's in front of you.
So curiosity is a good thing.
Curiosity is a key. It's a great thing. It's a key. It also is how organizations will find solutions to all the things. Think about the smartphone that you have today. If you look at all the apps on your smartphone, think about what your smartphone does. You can put a PowerPoint presentation on.
You can do everything.
You can track your heart rate. Those are leaders who have said, yes, tell me more. They are the ones that have had curiosity. So many times leaders will come in and say, no, we're not going to do that because I've done this before. They have lost the ability to be open and to help the organization grow because they know everything, or because they're a leader, they feel they have to know everything. That's not true at all anymore. There is so much curiosity out there just from the people working around you. They're looking for new ways to do things. The innovation is crazy. And as leaders, we have to be open to that and also draw it out.
Right. And so it's not good to be that person that says, well, I know it all, and I got this, and I got that. I'm a leader. I can do this. No, you need to be open to your team, being able to put things out there for you.
Absolutely. And if you do know, if you do know something, absolutely share. We're not saying that leaders don't know anything.
Right.
That's not at all. They have been very successful to get where they are.
Right.
But there are times, and the smartphone is just the best example I can see of a whole bunch of people who said, yes, tell me more.
So communication is huge in leadership, right? So what are some tips? Some tips for leaders as it relates to communication?
Well, tips for leaders and for everyone is gossip. Stop gossip. I have seen in my career gossip being one of the number one things that have destroyed cultures, teams, relationships. The interesting thing about gossip is if you and I are sitting here, let's say you're the leader and I'm the direct report to you, and you start sharing things with me. First of all, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm now on the inner circle right now. Oh, they like me. They're telling me stuff, right? So now that gives you a different elevated sense of importance.
Right.
On the other hand, you walk away going, I wonder if they're saying anything about
me.
Yeah. So gossip is extremely destructive. Gossip, also the things that you overhear in the lunchroom. And what happens sometimes is when you come into the workplace and you start, maybe you've worked there for 10 years, you've worked with the same people for 10 years. You now are friends or family, and you feel like you can say anything until you make them angry or you have an argument. Now all the laws come into play. Right. Now all the values of the organization come into play. You always have to guard your words and action as a leader all the time. Always. You know, we talked about it being important in social media, but it's also very important in what you say within the workplace as well.
What advice do you have for someone who may walk into the lunchroom, break room, and there's gossip going on? How do you step back, remove yourself from that, and make sure you're not?
I don't know if I would step back and remove myself. What I would do if I were that leader is I would pull each individual into my office and have a conversation and say, look, our culture here, or what we're trying to promote here, is an engaging and accepting culture, because we're not going to win if we're talking bad about each other or talking about other people's stuff. Because really, it's not my right to talk about your stuff. It's your right to talk about your stuff.
Right.
And frankly, I don't want you talking about my stuff. Right. And that's how people are. But that can be very destructive. So I would talk to them individually. Absolutely.
So leaders really should be on top of that and making sure that they're
all the time.
And not act like it's not happening. You need to.
I actually had a situation that I heard about with a woman who led she was in real estate, and she had people that come in her office all day long and start talking about other people, and they weren't doing this and they weren't doing that. And it was draining for her. She actually almost just collapsed after a couple months, but because she kept taking it all on, and it was, I mean, let's face it, I mean, let's not get real spiritual, but it tears apart your soul, right? And that's what you're hurting other people. And she finally just put a stop to it. And what's interesting is, when you make a change like that, a really direct change, people are going to keep trying to put you back into where you were before, because that's where they were comfortable. Now all of a sudden you're different. And now they're very uncomfortable trying to figure you out. Like, I don't get it. So how am I going to have this relationship with you now where it used to be based on gossip? Now it has to be based on something else. Integrity.
So I was just going to talk about that, the integrity piece of it.
Oh, integrity. Integrity is huge, right? And again, lacking integrity, it's that statue, right? Here's what people are going to talk about 10 years from now. Not all the amazing things you did, but the one terrible thing that you did, or the one thing
that's what stands out.
That's what's going to stand out. You always have to be aware that everyone that is around you or in that room, they're human beings. They all have their beliefs and their values, and you are a representative of the organization, whether it's volunteer or corporate, and you have a responsibility and an accountability to lead with integrity.
And that's not criticizing your team. There's a number of things that you want to make sure you're not doing as a leader.
Right, and criticizing, now they'll say, giving performance feedback. Well, criticizing and performance feedback is different.
Absolutely.
Very different.
And what about job interviews?
Oh, job interviews. Wow. If I would say anything to anyone who's looking for a job, if you sit down and you're looking for a job, my question is I'm going to dig in to understand what you've done, how you've done it, the kind of relationships that you have built. If something went wrong, what happened? And if you come back to me and tell me they did this, they did that, I couldn't do anything, you have to look at that situation. I'm looking for someone who says, this is what happened and this was my reaction to it. This is what I did to try and make it better. These were the steps that I took. You really have to take ownership of yourself as a leader and not point the fingers at other people.
That's important to do. I mean, it just shows that you're not perfect. And no one's perfect.
It shows that you're not perfect, and it also shows that you take accountability and you're able to read a situation and respond accordingly.
So I was just thinking about something. The known leader in the company, the CEO or the manager or what have you, Is it their responsibility or to help their employees to recognize that they too are leaders? Meaning, you know, Michael, who might be working behind the desk doing, you know, job A, is it up to his manager to say, you know what, you are a leader. These are some of the qualities that you have, and helping him to identify that.
Right. So let's go back to the CEO first.
Yeah.
All right. So from a CEO perspective, the role is to set the stage. You're setting the expectations for everyone in the organization. So, you know, rules of behavior, rules of engagement, the vision, the values of the organization, and giving examples of what that looks like within the organization. Now, from a managerial perspective, you know, you don't have to say to someone, I want you to be a leader, I want you to develop leadership capabilities. But you can say, help me understand how I can help you be better with making decisions. Like, what's getting in the way? Whatever you want to do, you want to take away the blocks. You want to help them resolve any issues that you're having. So you're there to help them grow. However, I will also say growth is the person's responsibility and accountability. Someone can't do that for you.
Right.
But be open to it when someone's willing to help you.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking about what we said earlier, and you know, having everyone feel as though they're able to, that they have those leadership skills and qualities. Because some people, again, I think, are so afraid of the leadership word.
They are. Yeah. They're afraid of that leadership word because they think of probably like the CEO or government leaders. That's not what it's all about. Leadership is about being a good person, doing the right things, and helping others succeed as well as yourself.
So communication is like a three-legged stool.
It is. Because there's your view, there's my view, and then there's the truth in the middle. So when you think about communication, and that's why I like the whole idea of being curious, whether you're a leader or whether you're not. Because if you're curious, you can ask questions and start resolving issues as opposed to promoting issues. Because, you know, if you ask anyone, what is the number one reason a relationship or failed or had a problem, it's because of communication. It's because of misunderstanding. It's because of lack of interpretation or a different interpretation. And not willing to come to the table to say, you know, let's talk about this is what I heard. And this is how it made me feel. On the other hand, Kim, one thing I'll say is that when someone comes back to you and says, you know, Kim, what you said really hurt my feelings. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, I can't help it how you take what I say.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That is such a destructive response, which says basically, I don't care how you feel. It's what I want to say. You have to own that. You have to be accountable. You don't have to be responsible how I feel about it, but you have to be accountable for saying those words, and you have to own the wake that you create. You know about the wake that comes out the back of the boat? You've got to own all of it because it's going to spread. It's going to come bumping up against the shores. You got to own it.
So, final question for you. Are leaders born or natural leaders?
Well, let me go back to what we talked about earlier. Leadership is a state of being. And that state of being has capabilities that can be developed. Now, some people are born with talents. Some people are born with talents of playing the piano or whatever it is, or mathematical. So there may be people that have a certain propensity to some of those capabilities that leaders need. So in that way, are they born? Yes, but they can also be developed. We develop people every day. And remember, because leaders are not this thing. Leaders, everybody. Everyone can be developed.
Everyone can be developed. All right, Barbara, your website is?
My website is barbarawichman.com. And also Instagram and Barbara Inspires. Come visit, come follow.
We'll make sure we'll put all that down so everybody can see it.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I really appreciate you being on this month's edition of Career Center. And to our television audience, if you are unemployed, underemployed, or seeking a career change, visit the Community Career Center at 1815 West Hill Road, Suite 900 in Naperville, or search us on the web at communitycareercenter.org to learn more about the resources available to you. Thanks so much for watching.